We've received quite a bit of interest in my Free to Be workshop, so to that effect, beneath this video is a link that will give you a description for the workshop, and we've also included a special discount. So if that's something you would be interested in, I would invite you to click that link, and I hope that you would find the course to be quite beneficial. A question that I'm commonly asked is, can a narcissist change? Now, the answer is yes, they can, but then the rest of the answer is, but it doesn't happen often enough. Let's keep in mind that narcissism, at least in the way that I talk about it, is we're talking about human nature. There's an element on the inside of every human being that has a narcissistic bent. And when I say that, I'm referring to the fact that we all wish to be in control at some level, and sometimes it can become pathological. There are times when we don't empathize very deeply with other individuals. We can have attitudes of self-centeredness and entitlement. It can mean that we can be manipulative or exploitive. We want to be in a superior position. Sometimes you can be very thin-skinned. Those are all the primary ingredients of narcissism, to the extent that it can get on the inside of us and run away with us. Now, we can see this as being a pattern on a spectrum. Healthy individuals can stay down, if we can use a numbers continuum, they can stay down, let's say, at around the 20% level. None of us is going to be that perfect that we're going to be down to zero. There are times when we're inclined towards those ingredients, but it's like, wait a minute, I can do better than that. And we learn other more healthy kinds of characteristics that take us away from that narcissistic bent, more towards goodness and love and decency, the things that we like to talk about on this channel. There are other individuals, though, they have those elements on the inside, and it's like, I'm just going to run with it. When I say elements, the narcissistic elements, and they cross the line, let's say, over the 50%, if we can stay with that analogy, and it becomes more and more predominant in the way that they engage with each other, or with other individuals. Now, I want to run through 6 different factors that go into the inhibition of change. You know, what is it that keeps narcissists from making the changes that we would like to see them make? Now, the first one that I'm going to mention is sometimes this controlling, self-absorbed tendency is hardwired into an individual's personality. And we have twin studies and family studies and sibling studies that can show that actually genetics and things of that nature, inheritance, can actually be a part of your personality. You know, some kids from very early on are just naturally tender and gentle, whereas other kids are just naturally overbearing and strong-willed. And it's like you can have those two kids inside the same family. It's like, well, I don't know what happened, but they're very, very different. And there is some of that's just the way a person is bent. Now, this sets up the high probability that a reputation can be put into place very early on, and that becomes what you're known for. And so sometimes, because of your inherited tendencies, it's like, yeah, that person, well, you know how they are, and it can already be a feature that follows them as the years continue to pass. A second factor that inhibits change is that narcissists have major unfinished business regarding the topic of control. Inevitably, they had exposure to high judgment. And they learned early on that there are some people, if they're on this list, then they're going to be scorned. If they're on this list, then they're going to be okay. And so there's a critical spirit that they grow up with. And so it's like, okay, I know that you people out there have an agenda for me. I'm going to try to figure out what I have to do to be on the list where I get to call the shots. And they begin to learn from controlling people in their past how to be controlling themselves. And they don't really come to terms with the fact that, well, they never liked it in the first place. Instead, they just perpetuate what they've seen in an unhealthy kind of way. A third factor that inhibits narcissists from changing is they don't have empathy, and they don't think communally. Now, this implies that in their deeper past that they had low levels of emotional attachment. And instead they had a very high emphasis on what's in it for me. And somewhere along the line, being able to tune into another person's feelings or make room for differences that others bring to the equation was just brushed off. They never really learned how to say, how do you feel? Or let me know you a little bit more fully. That was just not part of their equation. A fourth factor that can inhibit narcissists from changing is that they have a strong, we can say a pathological resistance to vulnerability, which implies that they have low levels of trust. Somewhere along the way, they determine, well, if I share who I am and if I expose my flaws or my needs or my uncertainties, it's not going to end well for me. I'm going to lose my edge. Bad things are going to happen. And so they can have a shield that can sometimes seem impenetrable when you say, well, just talk to me about what your needs are and what your flaws and weaknesses are. Like, no, I don't do that. And I haven't done that for a long time. That's something they're very afraid of. A fifth inhibitor to a narcissist changing is that once they taste power, it can become addictive, to the extent that they actually lose their appreciation for some of the pain that they create in other individuals. All they know is once they're in that power position and people seem to tremble a bit or seem to back off whenever they come on in a real strong way, it's like, I enjoy this. In fact, let's keep this up. And they don't appreciate the fact that, power is something that is a responsibility. They want it to be a right. They want it to be something that they get to claim at someone else's expense, and they like it. And therefore, they just hold on to it. And then a sixth reason that narcissists don't tend to change as much as you'd like to see is that they're unable to pull out of the codependent patterns that they've been exposed to in their early years. Now, a narcissist, typically, they hear that term codependent, and it's like, I don't exactly know what that is, but it sounds like a nasty characteristic to me, and so they won't admit it. Codependency means that you're in a feeding frenzy emotionally. You feed off of me, I feed off of you, I take my cues from you, and I give cues back toward you, and neither one of us is taking healthy initiative because we're so busy reacting. That's part of the codependent pattern. The narcissist is heavily codependent, which implies that they don't have an internal game plan that they're drawing from. It implies low emotional competence is the way I put it. They haven't really thought, if I feel angry, for example, where am I going with this? Or if I have a disagreement, what does wisdom say is the way for me to handle this? Instead, they just play off of whatever happens to be there in front of them. So can narcissists change? Well, the answer is yes, but there are those kind of features and others, I might add, that would need to be addressed, and most of them tend not to do that. Now, if a narcissist is to change, there are certain characteristics that you'd like to see in place. Let me run through some of those. First, for a narcissist to change, they'd have to admit their narcissistic bent. And that would imply a sense of humility. They would have to basically say, I know that I have too strong of a need to control. I know that I can be selfish. I know that I can be insensitive to other individuals. I acknowledge that. And I admit that that's there and it's not served me well. It's not served other individuals well. Let's take a hard look at that. Now, having done that, next, in order for them to change, they would need to be very open with other individuals about that intent that they're going to change, and they would need to be specific. And that implies that they would be willing to have high accountability. It's not enough just to say, yeah, I know I need to change, but they need to pull others aside and say, here's the particulars that I want to look at. I want you to know that I'm working on that, and hold me accountable, will you? And then they need to, but that's that vulnerability they're afraid of, but they would need to put themselves out there in a very specific way with people who matter to them. Another element that we would look at that tells us if a narcissist is really able to change is they are eager to seek ways of learning. We have videos such as this that they could seek out. There are books, there's counseling, and people can help them unravel these kind of tendencies. There are all sorts of support groups, from the AA types or codependent anonymous types, or groups that offer all sorts of encouragement towards parenting or anger management, all sorts of things. They need to be in a learning mode, which implies that they would develop a high curiosity. Or another element that's part of the change process that narcissists would have to go through is they would have to prioritize knowing and feeling with others, which implies that they would have a higher level of emotional connection. Keeping in mind that narcissism is all about me, me, me. Well, if you're trying to break free from narcissism, you'd want to ask, well, wait a minute, what about you? And what's going on inside of you? And then this would lead to a final thought that's part of the change process. For narcissists to change, they would need to prioritize love over control and dominance, which implies that they would have a strong, or they would drop their need for relational competitiveness, and they would just have a strong sense that says, we're all in this together. So, can a narcissist change? Yes. Do they? Typically not, and I'm giving you an overview. There's so many elements that they would have to come to terms with on the inside of themselves, and then the healthy alternatives that they would have to commit to, and it takes a concerted effort, which is why, counseling is not just a one-time thing, or, we have our courses, and I have so many different ingredients to some of the courses that I've done through the years. It's a complex process, but it can be done. I'm hoping that as you're watching and waiting for that narcissistic person to make adjustments, that you won't just point the finger at them. I'm hoping you'll be thinking, well, am I able and willing to make my adjustments? I want that answer to be yes. And rather than waiting for them to make their changes, you might as well start with a notion that says someone in this equation needs to be healthy. And I'm more than happy to sign up for Team Healthy. And I want to be one of the ones that says change can happen. Let me show you what it looks like. And I hope that videos such as this give you some things to think about. If you've not already done so, we have that subscribe button there. And then actually, when you hit that subscribe button, then there's that bell that says send me the notification so that you can be apprised of the ongoing videos. We also have a membership now that is associated with our channel, and we have extra perks that we're going to have, and it's a very low nominal fee, like $7 a month, where we have Q&A kind of things and some extra videos and articles and things like that you'll receive that's not there for the general public. In addition, if you have a need for counseling, and what I've talked about here today may be something that needs to be unpacked with a counselor, we have a link below with a group, BetterHelp.com, that they can help you find licensed, experienced counselors that can help you sift these things out online. If that's something you would want to avail yourself to, go to that link. We also have our websites, survivingnarcissism.tv, drlescarter.com. We have my course, Free to Be, which talks about finding yourself despite the controllers in your life, links to books, lots of resources there. We want to help you. Let's recognize, even though a narcissist may not be the one to change, I'm hoping that you can say, I want to be in a growth process between now and the rest of my life. And when you commit yourself to that, that's when you're poised to find your place of peace.